So you want to get a handle on what's really going on in a complex situation, right? But without, wading through tons of dense reports.
Yeah, that's exactly what we try to do here.
And today, we're zoning in on Punjab in India. It's it's a place facing some really significant challenges right now.
We've gone through the materials you sent over, really trying to pull out the key takeaways to give you a clear picture of the situation there.
Exactly. Not just a list of facts, but like what really matters based on these sources. One of them puts it quite powerfully. Iyan ila edila direte irete che te cheshi patan tere mana bede nere cheshi tana hasiban takone eche pantane eta san tantale se tania eden kruse away bookin iche o in at he made what
All right. It translates to Punjab, where the land yields gold, where hearts are full of love and bravery. But today, the same Punjab is grappling with several serious problems. It paints that picture, prosperity and bravery, but facing tough times. Quite a contrast.
It is. So our mission really in this deep dive is to pin down the 5 most critical issues that need attention in Punjab,
Yep.
based entirely on the information you've provided us.
And it's important, I think, to see how these things connect. They aren't really separate problems, are they? They weave together to show the whole picture.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
So, okay, what are these big 5 areas we need to get our heads around?
Well, based on the sources, we're looking at the drug addiction crisis, then there's unemployment,
Right, and the agrarian crisis, the farming situation.
then the brain drain, young people leaving.
Yeah, and finally, the water crisis and pollution issues. Quite a list.
It is.
Okay, let's start unpacking these. Where should we begin? I guess with the one that seems to come up again and again as the most urgent.
And that would be the drug addiction crisis. The information, well, it paints a really worrying picture.
It really does. It's described over and over as the biggest and most serious problem.
Yeah.
And the scale.
Yeah.
It's kind of staggering. Well, the sources say that in many villages, every household has a drug victim. Just think about that. Every single house, potentially.
Dave.
That's widespread.
Wow. And the focus seems to be heavily on the youth, doesn't it?
Totally. It says Punjab's young generation is on the verge of ruin. I mean, that's a devastating thing to read. Think of the impact on families, on society.
It's heartbreaking. And the sources point to specific causes, right?
They do. It gets really interesting here. Drug smuggling from Pakistan is mentioned, obviously a huge factor.
Okay.
But also unemployment, which we'll get to. And maybe surprisingly, social media is also listed as a contributor.
Social media. That's interesting. Maybe normalization or exposure.
Could be. The sources don't elaborate much, but it's mentioned alongside the more obvious drivers like smuggling and lack of jobs. It's this mix, available drugs, maybe from across the border, combined with, well, maybe hopelessness from unemployment.
Yeah, a really toxic combination. It can make people, especially young people, much more vulnerable to addiction when they don't see other options.
And the knock-on effects are just what you'd expect, sadly. The sources link it directly to an increase in crime and also a decline in mental health.
Yeah, makes sense.
Plus, there's this statistic. Thousands of young people are in the grip of addiction. It just paints a very, very bleak picture.
It really does. And like you said, these issues are connected. This addiction crisis, it doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it leads right into the next big problem highlighted, unemployment.
Right. Described as another serious crisis.
And it's not just general joblessness. What stood out to me was the focus on educated youth.
Ah, yes. The engineers, the graduates.
Exactly. People who've, invested time and money in education, hoping for a decent future, and then finding themselves forced to work as daily laborers just to get by.
That's a huge waste of potential, isn't it? And incredibly frustrating for those individuals.
You bet. And the data point you mentioned earlier is key here. Youth unemployment in Punjab is much higher than the national average.
So that points to specific systemic issues within Punjab's economy itself. It's not just a reflection of the national trend.
Precisely. And the consequences? Well, they ripple outwards. The sources explicitly link unemployment back to the drug crisis we just talked about.
Creating that vicious cycle we mentioned.
Exactly. And also driving migration people leaving, which is another point we need to cover. And sadly, contributing to depression too.
So it's a web of problems. Addiction, lack of jobs, mental health issues.
Yeah. Which brings us logically to the next point, the agrarian crisis, farming.
And here, the sources convey this strong feeling of isolation. It says the Punjab farmer feels alone.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially given how central farming has always been to Punjab's identity and economy.
Absolutely, it's the heartland.
And the specific issues listed are pretty grim. Problems with MSP, the minimum support price.
That government safety net for crop prices.
Right, issues with that. Plus heavy debt burdens from loans and crop prices that just aren't cutting it. The sources say these things are breaking the backs of farmers.
And on top of that,
There's also mention of corruption in the market system, the Mandi system. Mandi Vyavastha mean Brashtachar. So multiple pressures hitting them from different angles. Economic hardship, systemic issues.
and when the foundation, agriculture, is shaking like this, it impacts everything.
The consequences can be extreme, unfortunately.
Terribly so. The sources state bluntly, many farmers are forced to commit suicide.
That's just awful.
The statistic cited is, well, it's chilling. One farmer is committing suicide every day. Every single day. It's hard to even process that. It points to such deep despair.
It really does. And it raises huge questions about the long-term viability of things as they are.
Yeah.
The sources also touch on underlying environmental issues compounding this, right?
Yes, exactly. Water scarcity, Jal Sankat, and soil degradation. The land itself is under stress, which just adds another layer of difficulty for farmers.
Makes perfect sense. Economic pressure, environmental pressure,
Yeah.
it all connects.
Which, again, leads us pretty naturally to the next point, this brain drain.
The outward migration. Yeah. Because if young people, especially, look around and don't see a future if farming is in crisis, jobs are scarce. Well, you can understand why they'd look elsewhere.
And the scale mentioned is significant. Every year, thousands of young people turn to foreign countries. Places like Canada, Australia, the UK are mentioned.
And the core reason given is just stark. The perception that there is no future here.
That's a devastating assessment for any region, suggesting a real loss of hope in local opportunities. It's not unique to Punjab, of course. Many places face this.
True, but think about the long-term hit. The sources call it brain drain, and that's exactly what it is. It's weakening the state's potential. You're losing your brightest, your most energetic people.
The very people needed for innovation and future growth.
Right, and there's a specific number mentioned. Lakhs of students go abroad every year. A lakh is 100,000, so we're talking hundreds of thousands annually. That's substantial.
A huge outflow. And the impact isn't just economic, is it?
No, not at all. The sources point to the social fabric fraying, breakdown of social structures, and this really sad point. Elderly parents are left alone. Elderly parents akele hain.
Yeah. That's a really human cost to this migration trend. Whole families restructured, older generations left behind.
It shows a deep societal shift. Which brings us to the fifth major challenge we pulled from your materials, the environment, specifically water and pollution.
A critical one. The sources are pretty clear that Punjab's groundwater has reached a dangerous level.
Yeah, dangerous level. That sounds alarming. And the main causes identified.
Well, firstly, excessive water use in agriculture, which links back to the farming crisis we discussed, certain crops needing a lot of water.
Right. And secondly, just a lack of effective water conservation. So too much being used, not enough being saved.
It's a recipe for depletion, and then there's the pollution aspect added on top.
Yeah, that sounds bad too. Factory pollution turning rivers into poison, according to the sources.
Poison. That's strong language. It implies serious contamination, affecting drinking water ecosystems. Everything.
And there's another statistic here that really drives it home. More than 80% of tube wells are at the danger mark.
Over 80%. Wow. That just shows how critical the groundwater situation is. It's not a future problem, it's right now.
Exactly. And the sources warn about the risk of a long-term ecological disaster. It's about the future health of the whole region.
So these 5 areas, drugs, unemployment, farming crisis, brain drain, water issues, they paint a challenging picture, to say the least.
That does feel quite heavy looking at it all together.
Yeah.
But, it's really important to stress that the sources themselves don't just leave it there. They do offer a sense of, possibility.
Absolutely. Despite laying out these serious problems, there's an explicit message that the solution is not impossible.
That's crucial, isn't it? That sense that things can change.
Yeah. And the sources point to what's needed. Political will, public awareness, and unity of every section of society.
So it requires a collective effort. Government, people, everyone pulling together.
It can't be tackled piecemeal.
Precisely. It needs a unified approach. And there's that really hopeful quote you mentioned earlier.
Ah, yes, the call to action. Tear it, fancy pants, turn up the curve, give me a time, cry it power, fire it, bend on time, paint a foot on time, voice on fire, point out, top on test, let's once again guide Punjab towards the light, for which it has always been known, bravery, hard work, and humanity.
It's a call to rediscover that core spirit.
A powerful sentiment to end on.
It really is. So just to quickly recap for you listening, based on the materials provided, we've looked at the 5 key challenges facing Punjab right now. That's the drug addiction crisis,
The serious unemployment, particularly among the youth.
the deep agrarian crisis affecting farmers,
The significant brain drain as young people seek futures abroad.
and finally, the critical water scarcity and pollution problems. And understanding these, gives you a real snapshot of the complex reality in a state known for its strength and resilience.
Definitely. And maybe this leaves us and you with a final thought to chew on. Hearing that call to action in the source material that call for bravery, hard work, humanity, makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is the role for individuals, for communities, even those of us watching from afar when facing such big, interconnected societal problems?
Yeah, what does it actually take for a place like Punjab with that history, that reputation for hard work and courage? What does it take to navigate these challenges and, as the source says, find that light again?
Something to think about.